Hi, everybody, and welcome to Music Career Radio. I'm your host, Nani Noam Vazana, and my guest this week is Yossi Fine, an international bass sensation and the recently appointed director of the Red Sea Jazz Festival. Together, we will explore both sides of being a DIY musician and an artistic director at the same time, as well as ways for independent musicians to collaborate with presenters, institutions, and festivals while showing how to be a part of their program. As you know, all work on this podcast is done voluntarily, so we also collect donations for scholarships for independent musicians. Please visit YDIYmusic.com/donate and support us and many musicians that deserve a better education. You could also send a direct PayPal transfer to paypal.me/Noam Vazana. And I'm going to say hello to Yossi here. Welcome, Yossi. How are you doing?
Right now?
Oh, now I can hear you very well.
Okay,
Yes.
so hold on. I need to connect this thing. So
this is the DIY in action.
yes, exactly. Because the other microphone wasn't good. But you can talk. Okay, there it is. There we go. We're good.
So you just came back from the beach?
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Do you live walking distance to the beach?
No, I live driving distance, but it's about 10 minutes and there's nothing else to do. I mean, I would go to a vacation at this point because I mean, it's touring and then vacation, and if I couldn't go tour and no vacation and I live next to the beach, then I don't see any other reason.
Yeah, it figures. I would go on vacation as well. I miss traveling, especially, because we are both used to being on tour all the time. And I miss the road. It's very strange to be stranded at home all of a sudden.
Yeah. And, I miss it, but not necessarily. I realized that. Well, I realized it in the beginning of this whole thing, that I could live without it for this year, because my years would revolved around touring in the summer, and in the winter you prepare and produce and do all kinds of things, and then in the summer you work and you work this whole year in order to tour in the summer, and all of a sudden I was like, hey, no tour this summer, and in the beginning I was like, oh my God, and then later on I was like, you know what? It's okay. I'm not going to tour this year. It's not the end of the world. It's the end of the world as we know it, but it's not the end of the world like that.
Yes.
And so I just accepted it. So I'm having fun, not worrying about airports and if the luggage is going to come and all of my stuff is going to come, and if we're going to get picked up to the show or not, and and if we're going to catch the train the next day early in the morning. I don't have to worry about that.
So there's also a relief factor. Like, I just kind of miss it the whole time. But also for me, I was touring the whole year. I wasn't touring only in the summer. I think we make a little bit of different music, me and you, because your music is more suitable for big festivals. So my audience is more theater-based and jazz club based. So I'm going on tour in the winter anyway. So normally it's anything between March and December. I'm pretty much full on the entire year. Sorry?
No, I'm listening.
You said something? Yeah. So for me, it's like the reality has changed a lot according to the pandemic regulations. But for you, I'm happy that you can take a vacation and relax.
I mean, it's a vacation if you want it or not. I didn't take it. It was given. It was given, and I was like, okay, might as well, and. I mean, you got to roll with the punches, and whatever the stuff is coming. I think musicians, especially that know how to improvise, they come from jazz or whatever, and improvisation is a huge part of what we do. And a lot of times stuff doesn't work the way we want it to work. We think, we're going to do this and that, and then reality hits us in so many different so many different situations, and you need to just work it out. So
Yeah, I guess that's also a part of how music makes you more adapted for life in a way. So if
Absolutely.
you know how to improvise, then you will be also able to improvise in your life.
Yes, and the way, the power or the ability to let go, the ability
Mm.
to let go. I had a huge incident in my life that taught me that, and that was about um, 15, 16 years ago.
Hmm.
It was like a crazy year. My father passed away. Then my grandmother, who is like my
Oh,
main
sorry to hear.
parent, passed away. And then 2 months later, my studio was kind of like this here, but I had a studio. I lived in New York. Was hit with a flood, and all my stuff was gone. I mean, all my
Oh,
guitars,
wow.
bass, pedals, recordings, articles, pictures, cassettes, all the memorabilia, everything was gone. I mean, gone. You know, everything that I grew up with up until that point, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
there was like nothing. And it was very, very, very painful. But I realized very quickly that it's a sign to bring to let go of what it was, and to let in new things into my life. And so I bought
Yeah.
new guitars, not the same ones that I had. I did not try to to redo anything that I had. I bought new style of guitars, new style of pedals, new styles of studio, of everything was new. I had to learn from scratch everything. Even playing on the guitars was like, wow, I'm not used to those. This is completely different. But
Yeah.
once I got through it, it took about a year, or about 3 years almost, but the first year was the hardest.
Yeah.
And I realized that not only can I survive through all this fucking, it was crazy, but I can like relearn, and I could be a new person after that can adapt to new situations. And after that, more and more situations not as bad like that came into my life. And I changed continents and houses or whatever, and each
Yeah.
time you have to adapt. And so when this time came about, I was like, well, it's an opportunity to adapt to a new thing. I don't know what it is, but it is going to be new. I don't think we're going to come back to anything that we know.
I think so too. It will change the world completely, especially the live performance aspect of it, and any kind of
Yeah,
work that is related to communication with people. And I think you're right. Learning to let go is an important lesson. I must admit that I struggle with it as well, especially if I'm creating something myself and I want it to be perfect. So I have this issue with, having things the way I want it. And yeah, letting go is a big lesson, especially if it's from your own principles. Rather, if
yeah,
the world throws things at you, I think I'm more easily adapted. But when I'm throwing things at myself, I'm less easily adapted. So yeah, it's a lesson for me too.
yeah.
But you
I
are an
mean,
all-around musician, so for
yes.
you, I guess it should be easy.
Yeah, I mean, and it happened so many times that I would come to certain situations, and my equipment did not show at the show.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
happened to me too.
And so you
Yeah,
you like, and it's about 1 hour or less than that to do the show, and you have to do it,
yeah,
or you stuck at a certain airport and your flight is canceled to the next destination,
yeah,
and you need to immediately improvise a new way to get to this thing, or so many different things in life. It's life. It doesn't have to do with music. It's just because of so many airports. And so but what I told you before was like the hardest, but the best school for adaptations like that. So since
hmm,
then, I'm way more easy to accept whatever changes come.
yeah. I totally agree with you. It takes time, and it makes you adaptable being on tour, because you have to face a lot of things that you don't have control on,
Yeah.
and also I started actually renting instruments on locations just to avoid
Okay.
the loss of equipment, and also some airlines in the last couple of years, they started refusing instruments on board. Like I carried my trombone all the time with me, but in the last 2 years, I encountered many airlines that just refused to take it on board, and I don't want that to happen. So I just left it at home the next time.
I'm not sure how easy it's going to be from now on. I don't know, but So where do you live right now?
In Amsterdam.
Okay. How is life in Amsterdam?
It's not so bad. We didn't go into a complete lockdown, but there is a certain precaution within the population that is taking more care when they approach people, or when they just meet each other on the street. Like before, you could walk down the street and people would greet each other, or I don't know, really easily come to you and ask you a question. But now it doesn't happen anymore. And also, I think it pumped a little bit of the aspect of racism within society, because a lot, even because I look Mediterranean, and when I walk down the streets in Europe, especially in North Europe or West Europe, let's say. So I get stares and I get remarks. People think many times that I'm a refugee from Syria, for instance, or something like that. And people don't like that because they don't really like refugees. And so I get a lot of remarks. And now it's, I think, even more acute because people think, oh, she's a refugee and she has corona, So if you sneeze on the street or cough on the street, all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, it's the Antichrist. We gotta stay back. I think it will affect a lot of how people communicate with each other. Yeah. In the long run. So not only now.
I'm sorry. Hold on. This light was in my face. Okay.
You can show us the T-shirt in the meantime.
Yeah. I mean, social distancing. Yeah, they made it. It's definitely effective. Yeah. It's definitely effective. And what do you do in order to how do you move your day when not having shows or whatever?
I create a lot of online content and collaborations with different artists and organizations. I have, for instance, on the 12th of July, I'm hosting a live stream about Ladino. So I will perform a Ladino concert and also share some stories about Sephardic heritage. And I have 15 different partners with me on that performance. So for instance, the Israeli Embassy in the US, the Manchester Jazz Festival, You Must Believe in Spring Festival from Italy. So like all these people come together and we have, I think, 6 or 7 countries involved. And it's quite interesting to see how our communication is still functioning, although we have to adapt, to the screen situation. But also, I think that some things are improved because in the past, when I would talk with musicians about collaborations, they would also always say, we should play when we meet. And now all of a sudden I hear, no, let's do a video together and do a split screen and let's try it out. So the accessibility of working online is being improved at the moment, not only technically, not technologically wise, but also the way that people observe it and are less reluctant to use it. So there's also a little bit of blessing within the hullabaloo of the pandemic, if you know what I mean.
So you stay at home most of the time?
I stay home most of the time and I communicate through the internet with my audience. Well, I'm also lucky in that sense because I've been touring for 16 years now and I've collected 14,000 email addresses after shows of people who are interested in my music. So my newsletter at the moment is very active. And I have a subscription program that people could subscribe to, and we could chat on a daily basis and share music all the time. Other musicians are not as lucky, I think. But maybe it's a good time to do it now. Use this time to create an enlarge your fan base and try to keep an untainted communication with them, and it will help you also later when you're touring.
Yeah, yeah, that's very good. That's very true and very good. I'm not so active like that online because I don't know. I at first I was in the studio the whole time and working on our second album with Ben Elon, myself,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and Asha on keyboards and the Blue Desert music. And so we, in December, we just got into the studio and, we just played and then I came to this studio in order to mix and then the whole thing, you
Yeah.
couldn't go out. So
Erupted.
yes, I stayed and stayed and stayed and worked and worked and worked. And then at
Yeah.
a certain point, I was like, no, I'm stopping for a minute because I want to, once it's all over, then I'll finish this thing. I mean, it's almost finished, but I wanted to somehow have an energy of being relevant. And I'm not sure that if I'll do something now, would it be relevant in about 6 months from now? Because when I hear
As far as
stuff from
releases?
what?
Do you mean
As
as
far
far
as
as releases, recording albums?
as far as music,
Okay,
goes, and as
generally.
far as many things go, like whatever was true in January, I don't think will be true in next January at all. At all,
I think so
I'm not
too.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, so whatever I heard, the way I was listening to music and what I thought would be so relevant, well, in March we're gonna start releasing the first single, and then in April and then May we're gonna release the album, and
Yeah.
then we're gonna tour, and it was scheduled like that. Now I'm like, whoa, it will have
Yeah.
to the last thing will have to wait because there's certain things that I hear even now. I'm like, wow, that would not work. Post Corona, I don't think it would work post Corona, but I don't know yet. So, and then in the middle of it, all of a sudden, I got the proposal to be the musical director for the Red Sea Jazz Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me off. It was so all of a sudden, and it was in the middle of this whole lockdown, and you don't know what to do, whatever. And all of a sudden, I was like, "What?" And
Yeah.
I thought about it for a few days. It wasn't something that because I was like, on a normal thing, I would be like, no, I'm touring, I'm doing other things, and all of a sudden I had to think about it, and I was like, that's great. I mean, it's a great gig. I love it. So you can actually expose so many different things to audiences, music. I get exposed because of that to a lot of new music, a lot of new musicians. So I love it.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to do the summer edition or the winter edition?
Well, it's the summer edition. The summer edition moved before the Corona to November. So it's the second weekend of November. Yes. Yeah, they
I didn't know that
all,
they changed it.
They changed it. Look, Eilat, which is in the red, it's in the desert on the beach, it's in the end of the Red Sea. And usually it used to be August. And in August, the temperature,
the end of August.
Excuse me 1 second. I got to. Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you. I have the air conditioner on me, but I can't move it. So, so the temperature in August in Eilat is 40 to 45 degrees throughout the day, from about 10 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the evening. And so and it's high time of hotels, so the hotels are very expensive. And it's too hot to do anything throughout the day in order to enjoy the day other than go to the swimming pool. It's impossible. So by moving the festival to November, the temperature is like 28 degrees throughout the day and 17 at night. So that's already like
Fantastic. You'll get
exactly
more visitors from Europe that way.
exactly. Not this year, I think, but I think as
We'll
coming
see.
years to come. I hope also this year if everything goes through. And the hotels are less than half. So if you book for for like 3 days, um, it would have got what in August it would cost you a day. Whatever you spend for a day, you can spend for 3 days this time. So I think,
In November.
yeah, and they're gonna probably allow camping as well, which I
Oh,
think is going.
that's
Yeah,
fun.
I think it's going to be incredible because I think that there's going to be a chance for a much younger audience to come also. Plus,
Yeah.
even all the
Well,
hotels,
if you cut the
all
costs and allow camping, then you'll
exactly
be
plus
swamped with
hotels
hippies in no time.
and Airbnb, and they have a new airport in Eilat, which will have straight, lines from Europe, like Berlin and places.
Yeah.
So I think it's all in all is going to be within the next few years a great vacation where you can snorkel and eat fish or whatever, and then great music at night. And there's going to be also a lot
Yeah.
of party after hours on the same spot. So it's not going to be only jazz. But from a certain point, like say around midnight, it turns to be like just like a good party.
Sounds great. So does that mean that there will be no winter edition? Does that mean that this is the only edition of the festival?
There's going to be a winter edition, but I'm not
Okay.
part of the winter edition, so
Yeah.
I don't have anything to do with winter edition. I just have to take care of this here. So
Yeah. I was wondering because did you ever program for another festival, or is this your first venture?
my first venture.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I was looking it up and I didn't find anything about previous programming positions. And I was thinking, because you're coming to the programming from the position of the musician, and also being a DIY musician, because you do a lot of things yourself. How do you see the scope of the programming in collaboration with the musicians themselves? Will you have plans to allow a lot of collaborations or proposals, submissions that will come or will arise from the artists themselves?
Well, okay. First of all, I don't approach it because of a musician that I was. I mean, I totally get that. I know better than all those things what the musicians feels. I played it in hundreds of festivals, and I
Yes.
think that what I bring to this here is, first of all, I'm a producer for the last 25 years. Everybody says a bass player, but for the last 25 years, I'm a music producer. I produced so many albums, over 50, easily. I stopped
That's how we
counting.
met, because I wanted you to produce an album for me.
Oh yeah.
Remember, a couple of years ago? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the producer is you know what I mean? I see it more like
Yeah.
as a producer. I produce this thing. So
Yeah.
I'm used to making decisions, and I'm used to create. I also DJ'd for a few years. It was part of things I did, and it was great because I knew what the audiences like and do not like, and DJing was a great school. And something about programming the festival is like a DJ, because you kind of like program the set for the whole day. You understand? So you have a stage, and then next stage, and then the next stage. It's like one turntable, the second turntable, and
Totally.
but it's a show after show after show, and it has to do a lot with the vibe, that is a continuous thing, whatever, throughout the day. You go like, this will go good in this hour, and this artist will go great after that artist, or you know what I mean. So there is a lot of those things that come into play, and from the minute it was announced that I'm the programmer, I got well over 150 different requests. Submissions, exactly. And this year is only local Israeli acts because of many different reasons.
Well, because of the pandemic.
Exactly. I think a lot of countries do the same thing. They just use local artists because you got to support your local community first. And and so that was also
and
what
there
I
are
thought.
No flights.
Yeah, we think maybe by then there's going to be flights, but that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is that you need to support your local musicians first. And that's so important, because if you have a slot for 20 or 30 acts, and I think those 20 or 30 acts this year, 2020, need to go to your local musicians. That's how I feel. And also, there's too much good music that is happening locally that a lot of people just don't know about here in Israel, because and I think in a lot of different places, people don't know how good music is from their own place, because they're so busy to always look for stuff that comes from abroad, and that always,
it's the same with tourism. Not a lot of people take time to visit their own countries and see the beautiful nature and landscapes. They rather go abroad because it photographs well on Instagram.
Yeah, it's
say that you've been somewhere.
Different food and different climate, and you get to see different things, and it's different, and it's all good, and it's great. But yeah, we got used to it.
Both. I love both because I love traveling. Traveling feeds into my music as well. Like, I need to be in motion to create something that is relevant. Because if I'm staying put, I feel like I'm stagnant and I don't have a lot of creative juice anymore. It's like what Bob Dylan said, like that the artist is always in the state of becoming. And if you stand still, verkackt, it's going to stop. So...
So it's also here is again a new thing for me to I'm studying it. I'm at this point the least experienced festival director you can interview, because I haven't done that before.
Oh, but you have been playing on a lot of festivals, so I think that's a lot of experience too.
Exactly, but I think that's exactly the point. I've been in more festivals than any other festival
directors,
director would ever imagine to be, because just the Northern California, just that alone, it's a whole other style of festivals that you don't see anywhere else, only on the very west coast of the United States. Those are my favorite festivals, by far. By far, those are my favorite festivals. Those festivals are always in nature, and
Hanga
it's great.
Style.
And the music and the sound, they love good sound. And also the styles of music that you can see there are so open and not so under label. You can see great jazz artists, but it's not in a jazz environment. And that's what I love.
Yeah, I agree.
I love when the stuff doesn't have to be, okay, this is, jazz, and now you have to come in with suits and play jazz with an upright bass. No, jazz is way, 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 way broader than that. And it doesn't have to have a certain dress code or a certain instrumental code or whatever. And it doesn't have to have and if people...
A lifestyle.
Exactly.
I call it lifestyle music.
Exactly. And so I saw a lot of different bands that blew my mind over there, or collaborations of jazz musicians with, jam bands, that is very jam bands in the U.S. and especially on the on the West Coast. It's a big thing, and they play more. It's more diverse a lot of times. It's maybe not as heady or how do you technical virtuosity as much as you might see, in a regular jazz festival. But it's very open. But anyway, you would see that, and immediately after that, you would see like a blues band and a reggae band, and electronic stuff and world music. I love that. So but the whole thing, the whole vibe of the festival, it's something that if you haven't been there, you don't see it so much in other places. It's just it's a cultural thing. In Europe, I saw those type of things in the hippie festivals. It's hippie festivals.
It depends
Even
where. The Salzburg Jazz Festival, for instance, has very nice programming.
Oh,
Tina
I'm sure.
Heine, I don't know if you know her. Like, she's eclectic. She creates also collaborations. She calls it blind date sessions, I think. So she puts two musicians for 1 hour, and the entire hour is just improvised music. So they meet each other for the first time on stage. It's really cool stuff.
I would love that. I would love that. So so that each personality, can bring their own flavor to this thing, and so from when you see so many different style of festivals, and you figure out what are the more fun, and you can take an idea from this festival and apply it here, and and it's still always, after 1 year, I'm sure I will make a lot of decisions not to repeat certain things and to move into other things and try different things. But it's fun. So your question was, how do I go about it being a musician? First,
how would you value the collaboration of the musicians within the programming? Like, would you commission new works that will be artistically directed by the artists, for instance?
Yes, absolutely. That's it depends in the musician. Sometimes you want certain musicians, you go like, please, if possible, for you, at least collaborate with this other guy for this particular one-time event, okay? And some people go, yes. And there's certain things that we go, would you mind hosting so-and-so or whoever you want, in the middle of your set for like a few things.
Yeah.
And go like, great. But at a certain point, sometimes if they don't want to do it, I'll fight for them not to do it as well. Because I remember myself being, sometimes, I would come with my band or whatever, and we have a specific thing that we want to play, and it's like a set. It's almost like a DJ set, people are dancing, and we know exactly how to build it, what's the buildup of what's the story. And all of a sudden, in the middle of it, you have to stop the show and bring somebody else, and you got to warm up again, and the whole story gets cut in the middle, and it's hard to come back to the story later. So, you have to be delicate about it, and it doesn't have to be either or. It could sometimes be like
it has to fit the narrative.
Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering, because especially you played in a lot of festivals and you saw the programming, you notice, at least I notice a lot, that the amount of female band leaders that are programmed as headliners in festivals is about 5% worldwide. And I was wondering if you have any plan to address gender balance in your programming as well.
Not necessarily. It does have to be good. It doesn't have to have anything to do with gender. If you're good, you're good. And if you fit the program, you fit the program. I don't care if you're a female or a male. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Music is music. When I listen to music and I get the feeling, I don't think if it's what's the gender of the music. I just love the music. And a lot of times it's like blindfolded, you know what I mean? And so if I hear something great and I go, who is this? And they go like, Hiromi. I go, yeah,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But
yeah,
I don't
sure.
like it
That's
because she's a female. I like Hiromi because Hiromi is great. And I played with Michelle and Degeo cello a long time ago.
that's fun.
Bass player, you know, yeah, bass player. And I was a bass player. I was her
I
bass
love
player.
her.
And in the beginning, you know, it was, you know, she was younger than me, and and she's telling me, okay, play this, play that, play this, play that, and I'm like, oh, you know, it wasn't easy. Not because she was a female, not because she was a female, because she knew exactly what she wanted, and I realized very quickly that it doesn't have anything to do with gender. She was just, first of all, an unbelievable musician at 23, 24 year old. She's a genius. She was better band leader, tighter than any of the other band leaders that I've been. Well, we're all men, you know, band leaders as
Mm.
far as musical direction. Okay, maybe it was because she was a female, but I think that, you know, she was tough on the band, really tougher than any other guy. And I would ask her, why are you so tough? Because it goes like, when you're a female, you know, you got to, sometimes you have to be twice as tough, you know. But
Yeah,
in
it's
general,
I have the same experience. Like if I in the past, well, not now. Now I work with wonderful musicians, but in the past, I had the impression as a band leader that if I would request something from the band musically, right, not personally, musically, they would just not listen. They would be like, "Yeah, this is better," and they would play something else. Now I have maybe a bit different status, and also I choose my musicians because they're great people. In the past, I was choosing my musicians on the basis of being great musicians, which is something
yes,
completely different. I
yes,
rather tour with people that are great people than and they will learn to be great musicians with time.
absolutely, because you
So
have to. But well, and so even in my group, there's two females, and we are two guys and two women, and you know, and it's, but I love the energy. I love feminine and female energy on stage. I think the stage needs to be balanced, you know, not just male and not just female. I think the balance, it's what life is, you know, it's the balance in male and female. And absolutely, I have, in the festival, we always want to make spots that are more female, or, you know, like if we find a female band or musician that she can lead, obviously I love that. Obviously I love that. But it's going to give more of a certain vibe at that
mhm.
particular time of show, because it's a different energy than a man's energy. So absolutely, but to me, it's really, if the bands would be more balanced within themselves, it would not be an issue. I don't care who leads the band. I really don't. If it's a female or a male, it doesn't have anything to do with the music. The music is the music.
I think you saying that because you're coming from the position of the musician. It seems to me that a lot of musicians are super open-minded about that. And when we listen to music, we listen to the music. We don't listen to, we would not let the video, for instance, affect us so much because the music has to hit us first. But a lot of people, uh, they don't consume music as audio. They consume music as a lifestyle, as we mentioned before. And then there is a certain clique, I think, like especially within the music world, because there's only 15% of female programmers. And these people have been growing up together since they were very young. The tendency is to hire the people you know. Everybody does that. We all do that. And I also get questions a lot of times, like for instance, from programmers, could you recommend the top 5 bands from Israel? Or could you recommend the top 5 bands from the Netherlands? And when I check out their program, like a couple months later, I see that my entire list is on the festival. So in a way, I'm doing their programming for them, right? Because they know me, they trust me. So they ask me, and they program these people. And because of this tendency, we are not exposed to new music. And when we are exposed to new music, we're exposed to a video. And there's this famous research that has been done in the University of California about 4 or 5 years ago. And they took recordings from the Rubinstein competition, the piano competition. Yeah. And they showed like a huge group of people, I think more than 2,000 people, the videos in 3 different versions. One group only got the audio, one group only got the video, and the third group had the audio and the video together. And they asked them only one question: to name the winner from the people who participated in the competition. And interestingly enough, the only group that succeeded predicting who the winner will be is the group that got the video only, without the audio. So we are kind of listening with our eyes instead of listening with our ears.
Sure.
Yeah. So whatever creates the trigger within us visually is probably going to lead to the liking of that specific music. And I think that's a big effect as well in programming.
Absolutely. I mean, I get the videos all the time, and it makes a big difference because you see the energy of the person, and within the video, you see something about the energy, and you react to the energy, and you react to the. It's a big part of the story for sure.
Yeah,
trust me, as a producer, I teach production, at the Ramon School of Music, it's the biggest music school here, and in the other ones as well. And and I sit with all the students, and it's about production in the studio, and they go like, so how do you make decisions a lot of times, and whatever. Like, I go, but the best way for me to make a decision, if it's the right thing or not, is to bring women to the studio and let them listen, and I just watch the way they react. And the way they react, that's how I move my mixes, like I change the balances, because women listen more with their bodies, I think. Men listen more like with heads. They nod their heads, like this. Yeah. Women, they either, dancing, or they go like, oh, that's so sad, or that's so happy, or they're smiling, or, they're like excited. Men are not like that at all. They're not emotional. They don't get emotional like that. And so, and physical at the same time. So to me, watching, that's how a lot of times my productions, in the last minute changed, was when I worked with a band, and we are like, we're all dudes in the studio, and, we all, making sure that the drums are hitting hard and the bass is like boom, and, and the lyrics and the whole thing. And then all of a sudden, the PR person comes in, and she's got to work on the album, and then the manager from this other thing, and the girlfriend of someone, and the different women come into the studio, and like, let's hear it, and I'm like, okay, I'm playing, and all of a sudden they're like sitting like this, and after a while they're like, watching the phone, and I'm like, that's not gonna work. That mix is not gonna work. That's a good song, but it's not working. And within a second, I'm like, okay, check it out. And I just start to like make different balances. And I noticed that, they move a little better and better and better and better. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so I take all of that into consideration. They go, they leave. And then I change all the mixes according to what I remembered, their reaction was.
Yeah.
And then again. And so my whole philosophy, even within my own group, it was like, we play for our audience is females. If they would like it, then everybody else would like it. If they don't like it, we're not doing something good. So I'm
Well, if you're doing a dance thing, you want the club to fill up with girls, then
no, it doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with the fact. Obviously, I want the club to be filled with girls, obviously, but that's not the thing. The thing is that if they react to the music and they come to the shows over and over again, I'm doing something good. The guys will come,
oh yeah, that's
but
absolutely true.
but if the females do not come, the audience will stay very, very small. And remember, we're talking about jazz. Hello. And
Yeah, it's
we
white
used
man
to,
music played by black people. It's
but
a very very strange business that we are in today.
but it's always been like that. But the point is that I used to tour with all the jazz guys, back in the 80s and 90s, when I lived in New York. And we used to go to so many different, and I'm like, where are the girls, man? Why always dudes? Always men. 90% in the audience, 80% in the audience. And when you finally see the girls, they are a girlfriend of someone. And I thought that music is not it's not communicating something really, really important. Good music communicates below the notes, below all of that, and it doesn't have to hit everybody, but it has to hit both genders equally. It doesn't have to hit just one gender yes and one gender no. If one gender doesn't like that style of music, something that you do is not right.
I agree. You have to be global.
Yeah, you have to be human.
Yeah. I also like the fact that you have a dancer in your band. She performs with you several times. I've seen you in the Zone club, for instance.
Yes,
There was a
and that's
performance with a
exactly,
dancer.
and that's part of the first of all, to balance the energy on stage, to have the yin and yang on stage, so it's not just yin, and also for the fact that to communicate from it's a different way to communicate, and especially for women. And I really wanted to communicate that. And so I think that she was like a great, and she still is, she's a great interpreter of what we want to say without words.
Yeah. Ella is great. I really like her.
Yeah, she's incredible.
Yeah. So sweet also. I wanted to ask you something about, the conscience collective kind of thing that we are in these times now, because when I met you, it was in Israel, and I was looking for a producer for an album, that my third solo album that I composed, and somehow at the same time we both made a musical shift. The album I wanted you to produce was very much like singer-songwriter oriented, with songs in English and influences like Tori Amos and Nina Simone, and I was going to record it with a string quartet. But around the same time, I was invited to play in a festival in Morocco, a Tan Jazz Festival, and I did some roots traveling as well. Yes. And I went to the city of my grandmother, and I heard this forgotten melody that people were singing on the street in Ladino, and it gave me like this flashback moment. And I felt that there was an immediacy in my music making to make something else and not to stick with what I had before. So I changed my route at the moment, and I didn't produce that album, and I decided to make a Ladino traditional album instead. Now, around the same time, you also started playing less bass and started the project with Ben Ailon, the Blue Desert, and you're playing now the microtonal guitar, and it's a complete different style of music in your life than it was before. And I'm curious that there's a lot of people that are doing the same thing. A lot of young musicians are going through the same retrospective period as we did. And they're going back to their roots, looking for their identity. And we are good examples for that. Do you recognize any of this process in yourself? What made you bring forth the Blue Desert?
Okay, that's a great question. Look, I grew up in Israel, most diverse place culturally. You know, we all know it. You know,
Yeah.
we have as soon as you grow. Now Europe is kind of like that as well, but it's still new. But in Israel, you know, you grew up and your parent, your neighbor is from one neighbor is from Poland, the next one from Morocco, and the next one is from Romania, and the other one is from Iran, and one is from Yemen, all living in the same building, you know. And as kids, we all go to the same school. So you get exposed to all those styles of music back in the day, you know, when they all came from all those places, right? And we hated it. We hated it as kids. We wanted to rock and roll. And so that was like some, those music, that's some old people's music, you know, that's something to say. And on the radio, we listened to rock and roll and whatever was going on. And then jazz to some of us musicians. And, you know, I was into jazz because I loved funk and I needed to, and funk had, you know, like Steely Dan and, you know, all jazz rock. That's what I was into, jazz funk. So you needed to know jazz in order to get into all of that. And so I found myself, you know, at 20 years old in America for 10 years playing with all those jazz greats and I happened to do all of those things for 10 years, jazz and funk mainly, you know, not only. But what I noticed, and that here comes the point, I know that there was a point into all of that. What I noticed is that somebody comes from New Orleans, he's so proud that he's from New Orleans, okay? And somebody else comes from, like Miles Davis, from St. Louis, and he's so proud that he's from St. Louis. And somebody comes from Chicago and it's like, no, in Chicago, we played it like that. And somebody else comes from, you know, Washington, D.C. or Detroit, and no, we play it like that. Everybody represents their thing, you know. And in hip hop, it was even more, you know, even if you come from the Bronx versus represent that shit. So when I came back to Israel this time, I mean, I came back and then moved back to the U.S. and then came back again. So, you know, in the scope of many years, I traveled and lived in all those places. And I can play American style like you would never know that I'm not from America. You know, I can nail American style completely. However, when I was in Israel and I got exposed again to a lot of Palestinian music, Bedouin Palestinian music, which I love.
Bedouin stuff.
You know, yeah, all the dabke stuff and musicians, and I started collaborating with different musicians by producing them, you know. And I'm like, that's some great stuff. Woo! This is great. And I produced an album for Hassan Hakmoun, you know, the Genawa. Yeah, that was in 2013, 14. And I felt like, wow, you know, I'm in a great spot right here where all this music is coming from. But for some reason, Israelis, at least my generation, were not proud of their own music and where they come from. We are so used to, you know, trying to be American or European, you know, musically, like to play like an American or to play like a European, and not be proud of where we come from. And I was like, that's enough. I love that music, and I will know how to incorporate it. It's not that I'm going to be playing Palestinian music, you know, like that, but I can incorporate Palestinian styles into, or Moroccan style, into what I already know, which is the jazz knowledge, is the funk knowledge, is the rock knowledge, is whatever knowledge, you know, it's all trance. In the end, it's all trance. And if people dance, they dance. And if they get into a certain vibe, even if they don't have to move, it takes them somewhere, and music needs to take you somewhere. And the reason I loved reggae as a teenager was because it took me to Jamaica. It took me to Jamaica.
It's one of the music styles that really takes you on a journey. You can do it for
Exactly.
hours. As soon as it starts playing, you're immediately starting to move. It's brilliant. I
So
even cover, like, in my shows, I don't play reggae at all, but I cover Bob Marley all the time.
okay.
I love the
So
movement. Yeah.
so yeah. So every time I loved different styles of music is because it took me to those places first. When I listened to reggae, I had the picture of what Jamaica is through even the album covers, and then the way they speak and the way they mix or whatever. I understood something about them. If I love Brazilian music, if I love hip hop music, even in America, and I live in Brooklyn, and somebody is coming from the South, I understand something about the South, and I want to go there. All right. So different musics. Mali takes, I'm listening to Mali music. I'm like, wow, I'm looking at the album cover. I'm listening to it. I'm like, wow, I would love to go to Mali. And
Yeah.
so if you come from a certain place, I believe you need to represent your place. And if I would go and let's say there's a band from Greece, right? A band from Greece, doesn't matter which style of music they play. I'm not talking about Greek music. I'm talking about either jazz or rock, punk, reggae, whatever. I don't want to hear this band just sounding American. I want to hear what's the Greek style within that music. I would love to hear some Greek funk. All right. How do they make it? Or Greek dub, whatever. I'm not interested of a band from Greece to just play dub music, just playing dub music like Jamaicans or like British music. So I think that as an audience or as somebody that's curious, I feel that's my obligation as well to represent where I come from. So when I lived in the States and I used to tour Europe, coming from New York, I represented the States. But when I come from Israel, I need to represent where I come from. Israel is a very small country.
How do you represent Israel? There's so many things going on.
Exactly. But I represent the region because the region is bigger than just the borders. Bruce Springsteen comes from New Jersey, but he doesn't just represent New Jersey. He represents the USA in my eyes, or in a lot of people. He's making American music, all right? So he represents America. If I come from here, so Israel is not just like Israel. If I'm open to it, I listen to music from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Morocco, from Mali, from Ethiopia, from all of those places, because it just travels through here. It always was. And it's not my fault that, or a lot of us, most people, it's not our fault that we have certain politicians, controlling us, telling us, you're allowed to go until this border, and from this border, you'll be killed. Why? But that's the situation. But it doesn't mean yes, but the wind is the same wind, the sand is the same sand, the water is the same water, and the feelings of what it comes to you is the same thing. We are all human, and I hate those borders. There are, the borders are cool because they're, you have certain cultures within borders, and that's great to adopt and to learn about different cultures, and to, food is a great example like this. Dutch food, what would be without, exactly, what would Dutch food would be without all the colonies of Holland, right?
There is no Dutch food. It doesn't exist.
Exactly.
There's Indonesian food. There's Surinamese food. This is the real food.
Exactly.
Otherwise, real potatoes.
So here's the same thing, but it's actually even more to do with really the region that we live in, and that's a big deal, I think, to do so, and to represent where you come from.
So how did you get that feeling that you wanted to do that? Did you recognize a change in your perspective?
It just came about. I was always telling, there was a metal band, an Arab Palestinian metal band that I produced. okay, called Halas.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah, I know.
when I came to the first time I came to the rehearsal, they played, heavy metal rock, but in Arabic. But the music was American metal rock, just was in
Yeah.
Arabic. And I was like, look, guys, I don't like that because you don't play Arab music within your metal. I don't care that you do, hard rock metal in Arabic. I want to hear the Arab music within your metal thing. And they went like, oh, you mean like this? And they just immediately started playing like that. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want. And so we
It was
developed
always inside. It was just waiting to come out.
exactly. So we immediately developed this thing. And so, it was in me. And if I travel throughout Israel, I'm always buying up until even now, those CDs like in Palestinian Arab stores, they have the mix of whatever happens in the in the charts or whatever
on the computer printer, like
yes, exactly, the mixtape. So anyway, I'm
exactly.
always buying this thing. It's been like this for like at least the last 25 years. I love Arabic music. I just love it. But I'm not going to do it as this style of music. But I always thought that I should incorporate it into what I do because it's part of who I am. I live here, and I'm which makes me, from the region. It has religion is something different than your being. Religious is something you believe, and you can switch religion basically, but you cannot switch your DNA. You cannot. And so,
that's true. Can't run away from your roots.
Exactly. I eat hummus. I go to Arab restaurants. Those are my friends, and all is incorporated inside. So I started playing with microtonal just to get that vibe, because I wanted to play like that. I was like, that's some bad stuff. I want to play that. And then I met Ben Elon, and we started jamming in his studio. And when he played all his, Senegalese percussion, he's got all the sabar stuff, and he's playing Senegalese style. I was like, you know what, that's great, but let's incorporate also the beats that are coming from here, like Arab and, whatever, different beats within your style of percussion. So he plays a lot of times dabke beats, but within Senegalese drums, which creates a new style. You understand? So the beats are one style, and the sound is a little different. He goes, well, it's almost the same thing. It's just a little different nuance in the swing, the way they swing. So he swings it a little different. And I started the same thing, playing it, and it just came about. And I had to be honest all of a sudden with myself. I would go home after the first day or two, and I'm like, that's what moves me right now. The stuff that I did up until now doesn't move me as much. It's not exciting. I've done jazz and hip hop and reggae and all of those things for years and years and years. And okay, but I want something new that excites me. That I wake up and I go, like, that's some new stuff that I got to be excited. And so that's when I felt that I could put the bass behind for a minute. Now I'm starting to come back again to wanting to play more bass. But it was great for 4 years to do something that I done for so long. It's something I know to do better than anything else, to put it on the side and to learn how to walk without crutches, like to walk in different shoes completely, and to make. And it brings me to the same thing that we spoke in the beginning. It's about the ability to let go of what you know and your habits to a certain degree.
It's also something that is coming from within. because like in a way you're letting go of your habits that took you elsewhere, but you're hanging on to I guess the true self or the seed that has been growing within you since your childhood, because you were exposed to that old people's music in your neighborhood. So in a way
Exactly.
you're reaching out and letting go at the same time.
Yeah, if I lived here and I grew up in the Middle East, that makes me Middle Eastern, you know, and so I can't escape it. You know, it's part of me.
Yeah.
I'm a mix of many different cultures, but I grew up here. And if I grew up the same mix, Jewish father, Black Caribbean mother, but I would grow up in Hong Kong, or in Tokyo, I would be Japanese, even though I
I
would
wouldn't
be
mind
this
watching
black Jew
one of your Japanese.
Japanese. So yeah, you know.
Yeah. Most of the time when we meet at trade fairs, like, you know, Womex, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Bubble Med, which I hear, by the way, is now back and alive and kicking. So I'm very happy about that. When did you start going to music conferences, and how do you think it affected your career?
I started going to music conferences late 90s. I produced an album for Emil Zrihan. He's a Jewish Moroccan cantor, and that album was the one that, you know, made his career like explode, you know, and it was because of Womex. And his manager back then was like, "Oh my God, I got to take this to Womex, because they saw him last year in Womex and he blew everybody's mind and he's great." And I was like, "What is Womex?" You know, I just came from the US after 10 years living in the US. I didn't know anything about
You're
the
into
world.
K-pop.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, I know what to do with this album. It's an African style. I'll do it. And I treated this album as an African music, not as Jewish, Moroccan, or whatever. I was like, it's African music. Boom. And he grew up. And after that, I was like, that's great. And I had my own group, which had it had two women and one guy from Ghana and an Israeli drummer, and it was three Ghanaian musicians and myself. It's eccentric sound system.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it fell into world music. You know, we were like hip hop beats and reggae dub with a lot of African samples or, you know, African instruments on top. There would be no guitars or keyboards. Anyway, that was 20 something years ago. And that's how I started going to Womex and you know, pitching that new project, you know, to people. And so what I started, you know, I got exposed to a lot of festivals and then started playing in a lot of those festivals and made a lot of friends there, got exposed to so much new music that I was not, you know, what I love about going to the trades shows, especially Womex, is to see different styles of music and new different types of music that I never knew that existed.
And
so
amazing people.
Yes. But the people, after a while, you kind of start knowing the same, you know, the friendship starts.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's one thing, but those people expose you to different styles of, have you heard about this guy? Heard about this guy? Like, no. And so I love I think that in the trade shows, what I love is the human factor first, and then also the music that you get exposed to. And then the more you do it, you get better at your pitch. You know, you're pitching better. You know, you go straight to the point. It takes years.
Yeah, it takes years. It's a lot of practice. But I think it's also about personal connections and not necessarily trying to pitch or doing your elevator, you know, banter right away. At least in my eyes, I don't try to network anymore. I'm just there to make friends. And things happen within these relationships. It has to be sustainable. You cannot expect someone to do something for you if you don't do something for them. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
also advice that I give musicians that come to seek help, because I have this course for musicians, Why DIY Music, which is also where the podcast is on. And it's about making your own career, launching your own international career. And one of the ideas of this podcast is actually giving tips to independent musicians. So do you have any tips for independent musicians that are preparing their first trade fair visit, for instance? What should they do in advance or take with them?
For the first trade, come with no expectations whatsoever. Just go there and study what it is, because whatever expectations you have, you can throw it out the window. The minute you walk in, it's like, oh my God, 2,000 people with so many different booths. You don't know who to talk to, what is what. It's like mind blowing. It's like so much information. And so I think the first year for a musician to come to a trade show is to study that trade show and understand, meet people, ask questions before you start pitching your shit. Ask questions and understand who you are talking to, because a lot of times I remember I would be in a certain booth, right? And I was guilty of the same thing, but I saw it on other people. I stood at a certain booth because friends of mine had a booking agency and they wanted to sell all kinds of stuff, and they had to go to lunch or to do meetings. I was like, can you stay here? So I stayed there. Every 5 minutes somebody else comes. They don't know who I am. They didn't even ask, oh, we got this new band. We got this new show. We got this new thing. It was like, dude, I'm not the person. You didn't even bother to ask if I'm the person that can help you or not. Musicians.
Yeah. I'm being pitched to all the time. I'm getting like 5 emails per week from musicians asking me to manage them or to book them in certain territories. And I reply, guys, I'm a musician myself. I have a course that can help you launch your career. I can give you a personal session also.
So how do you get into your course?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
How do we get into your course? What's the
you go on the website ydiymusic.com and you can sign up. It's Why DIY Music. So do it yourself, DIY, the initials of do it yourself. Why do it yourself music? Yeah.
Okay. So I think the main thing is that go, no expectations, study. The first year you're going to go there, you're going to go and study that. And then maybe next year you're going to come way more prepared and you'll understand what to bring better. It's not a one-time thing where you go into a trade show one time and if it worked, it worked, and if it didn't work, it didn't work. No, it's an ongoing thing. And be curious and ask questions, even though you want to sell. Because when I go to let's say I go to either a restaurant or to shop for clothes, right? What I hated was when I would go into the store and it was like, hi, can I help you? Oh, this looks great on you. They didn't even ask me what I'm like wanting, that you got to ask, what is it that you do? What are you looking for? Is it for the day, for the night? You know what I mean? Ask some questions and then you'll know what I'm looking for, and then you could sell me some stuff. And so I think I think what you study basically is to sales, within that thing. And the most important things about sales, I think, is to ask questions first.
I think the most important thing is listening. Listen to the person you're talking to and not bombard them with information about yourself. If you want to talk about yourself, nobody wants to hear that. It becomes a rhetoric speech.
It's okay. I mean, I'm when I'm listening to somebody else, it gives me a lot of info if they talk about whatever they're into. But ask me if I'm the right person to talk to. That would be right there. Would cut you, I think, at least if you're going to go on 6 hours a day into the trade show, it would cut you at least half of the time, not wasting time, if you're just going to ask some questions. It took me years to understand.
Great tip. I'd like to remind our listeners that if you have any questions for Yossi, please reply now. You can put that in the comments, and we will.
Kids to, so yeah, I got to take my kids to whatever they got to go to within a few minutes. So now.
Okay, now, okay, because we had a 90-minute schedule there.
Yeah, almost there.
Sorry?
We are almost there.
Almost there. We have 15 minutes left. So the last part of the interview is actually my favorite part, which is a fun banter thing. It's not about music. It's just personal questions. And please respond with the first thing that comes to mind. Okay?
Okay.
You feel free to say anything. You can swear. You could say whatever you want.
Yeah.
What is your favorite word?
Possible.
Not bad. What is your least favorite word?
Impossible. I hate that word.
Obviously.
I hate when people go like, "Oh, but it's impossible." I just go like, "Oh, I hate that word, impossible," and I hate problem. It's a problem. Whatever you go like, I want to do this. Well, it's a problem. So, impossible, but more impossible is my. No, it's impossible to do that. Really? All right.
Yeah, I've tried and succeeded. So
Possible.
That's my experience normally.
You think about something and I think it's possible. All of a sudden, you're like, "Oh my God, it's possible," and you like, you go like, it's so full of hope. And impossible, it's the exact, it's like the killer.
Yeah, we are hearing that constantly in our lives all the time, even when we are kids, and we want to become this and that, and people will say, no, don't choose that, it's too much, it's impossible, you should choose for this and that. Like my parents try to convince me that I should be a doctor. Didn't work for them, but yeah, they persevered.
Okay.
What turns you on? Creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I think good energy. Good energy turns me on many different levels, whether it be between people or musically. It's something to do with the energy, good energy. And obviously everybody thinks good energy is something different for them. And good energy is something different, within, you're going to creatively. I think it's good energy plus really, really good musicians or interesting musicians. Not just good. A lot of people can be good, but they are inspiring, and they got good energy, But the minute they lay their hands on their instruments, like you go like, oh, it's so inspiring, and that creates really good energy a lot of times. And I think it's the same with people. It's like it starts with good energy, and then to open the possibilities to dive into something. So if I'm talking to someone, I don't care what is the topic, but let's dive into the topic a little more. Let's go deep. That turns me on completely, like into anything. If somebody tells me that they are growing vegetables, but they're into growing vegetables, and they're like, look, man, what I did is I took this and that, and I created this. I'm already turned on, because they are turned on like that. They're into what they do. So I love that.
Yeah, me too. What turns you off?
Oh, so many things. Bad energy, or I think I can sense that. I learned to sense that quickly, very quickly, and it could be even with food. You know, when I can sense the energy of a food that I'm about to maybe which makes me not going to most restaurants anyway,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever. But I like, no, that's not no good energy here. This is good energy, and you just go with you let your body go and take your hand into picking up that food or not. But it starts there. It starts there,
yeah,
um, and with work, I think that uh, again, the creative people in the room. But good energy is great. Bad energy is like if you feel like somebody's like complaining all the time and whatever, it's like immediately
oh
the
god,
vibe starts
I don't
to
like that.
so yeah. And
People
sometimes you
that
sense
focus on negativity.
exactly. And
Yeah,
sometimes we have certain days like that we are ourselves in that energy, or it's a collective thing. Sometimes like yesterday or the day before, the whole day in Israel was just weird from the beginning till the end for me. And a lot of people were like, today's a weird day. And then all of a sudden we're like, again, we are, closing all the clubs and live shows and stuff. And everybody got really
yeah,
depressed.
very surreal.
But the whole day had that weird energy until that moment. And then from after that moment, the next day was like weird energy. And yesterday I had that, I woke up and I was like, oh my God, and not again, but I was like,
Yeah,
I'm getting out of it. I don't need that. I don't want that. So I put the phone and the social media aside. Um, I just started doing other things, cleaning my house or, driving around, whatever. But
I
just
done that
not,
yesterday as well.
yeah.
I was feeling
So,
like, a bit turned off with all the work and stuff. And I thought like, okay, fine, I'm gonna tidy up the storage space. And yeah, it helps sometimes
yeah,
to get your
absolutely.
mind going. Yeah. What is your favorite curse word?
I think it's something between fuck and bumbaclat. Because when you say, "Oh my God, that's a bumbaclat thing," like, you get so excited because you know it's good, or you
Yes.
hear something it's very Jamaican, but it's bum, it's like, yes, it's better than the other word. But I think that if you use the word fuck within, this is really fucking good. It's like,
I totally
wow,
agree.
that's really good. Um, so I think curse word are those are the two.
Awesome. What sound or noise do you love?
It's hard. It doesn't come to mind right now. I think
Yeah.
sound and noise. I like the sound of an ocean, from a distance for sure.
Yeah.
Birds, which we didn't think about it until Corona, and all of a sudden, like every morning, birds. Hey, I didn't know we had so many birds here.
They're fucking loud, man. Especially
Ah,
now.
so
What
but
sound or noise do you hate? Oh, sorry, you want to say something?
sounds that I hate. I don't know. I think it has to do something with traffic in the wrong hours. I think certain traffic in the wrong hours, like at night or whatever, it's like, oh, but that's not necessarily just
Yeah.
one. The sound of
Motorcycles are like giant mosquitoes waking you up.
sirens. In Israel, we know about that, sirens of war.
Yeah.
That's the
I know
worst.
too well.
That's the worst.
I
You cannot, if you
when
live I don't wish for you to experience that, because that's the worst sound you can hear.
In the Second Lebanon War, I went with some friends to the north, and we played in the shelters while people were getting bombarded. And we got 4 different Katyusha hits on the same day. And one of them fell on the building that we were standing underneath. So the stones and everything came down on us. It was super scary. And also one time I was in Sinai, and I was during the terrorist attack in Ras El Satan, that beach. So we had two bombings in the same night. So it was, I had my fair share of interesting siren accidents.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's the sound I hate.
Yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, so many. First of all, other than musician, I'm a life coach. I studied that, and hypnotherapist. So I studied that for years. Yeah.
Wow.
So I would, and sometimes I do that. I mean, I'm the coach for the musicians in Israel. I have, I've coached so many. So it's so that's one thing. I love cooking. I can cook so many different styles, just like music.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. But I think Michelle Andeggio told me that, and she was so right. And she goes like, I met her a few years ago, and that's many years after we played together and stopped playing together and stuff. And she goes like, I told her, I studied, being a life coach and hypnotherapy and all of this. And she goes like, yeah, you will always be the healer. And I think that it all comes to that I think that even if I would be dealing with food it's all about, and it's the same with music. It's basically some healing. There's always I don't heal sick people, but I just want to make people feel good. That's, I think, my essence. And so when I play music, it has to be feel good music. And if it's food, it has to be feel good food. And if it's mental, it has to be a feel good conversation. It has to feel good. I love a feel good thing. And when I was shopping for my, the first time I got into it was, I got exposed to that term when I had that eccentric sound system, the musicians from Ghana and myself, and we shopped it. And we shopped it in Walmex and stuff. And they didn't get it yet. And I got to New York, and I had a meeting in a hip-hop label called Loud. They were a very big hip-hop label. They had Wu-Tang Clan and Mobb Deep, like big New York. And I had a meeting with them about producing stuff, and all of a sudden I played that music, that mix of African stuff. And he go like, that's feel good music. I haven't heard that in a long time. What you do is feel good music. And he was the first one to point it out. And after the years after that, throughout comments of and realizations, that's what I'm searching for. I'm always striving to feel good.
It is a genre with movies, so why not with music? And I think you're right, because I also feel that our job as artists is to inspire people. And even if we can't find inspiration on our own, we still have the duty to inspire people. And what you say about
exactly. My favorite bands or my favorite music, let's say, Earth, Wind and Fire, all right? Stevie Wonder. 2 of them right there.
I saw them. It's so cool.
Okay. So both of them are like incredible musicians, all right? But put it aside for a second, they are feel-good music, first and foremost, because there is other artists that are just great musicians, but their music is not a feel-good music. You actually get depressed or you get sad, and I don't get with that. I don't get with that. I appreciate that, but I don't get with that. I don't want to, go into a room and feel bad worse than I got into the room an hour later or 5 minutes later, by any
Yeah.
means. Not whatever food I eat, not whatever I smoke or drink, and I don't drink.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel bad after that. Why? Why feel bad?
It feels like some artists dump their emotions on the audience rather than, it's like a therapy session instead of.
And that's great. And that's why each one has a different thing in this orchestra. Each one have a different part in this. It's not just one. If everybody would have been first violin, then it would be terrible.
Yeah, it would be a very boring world. So I have only 2 questions left. What profession other than you would you not like to do? So I guess opposing to what we said now.
I think, well, I don't know. I think it has to do something with probably military.
With?
Military.
Military.
I don't vibe that at all. So this whole thing. But you know what? I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, basically something that the stereotypical military thing. Combative, whatever. No, that's not my thing at all. But I don't know. I don't know. It has to. I think that works that I would not like to do is I love meeting people. So if I have to work with, in isolation, I would not like that. You understand? That's Even though I work a lot in isolation, because when you work in the studio, work in isolation. So
hopefully, Corona will take over the world, and we'll come back to meeting people. And my favorite question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you enter the gates?
Glad here he comes. I'll be like, oh my God, I'm in the right place. That is my vibes.
Feel good in heaven, man.
Yeah, as soon as I walk in, if I hear that, I'm like, oh my God, here he goes. I'm like,
yeah, I'm in the right place.
Yeah, I'm in the right place.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this conversation. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, and have a blessed week. And all of us, take care of your mental health and your physical health and everything else in the following place.
We need it.
But we hear in the second wave, and it's not fun. It's not fun when everything gets shut down again, and I wish that nobody has to go to this again. Not in Europe or not in the U.S. It's because it's not fun. We can all stay at home and practice, whatever, hygiene and whatever, but to take the freedom for not having shows, for not having, gatherings like that, that's not good. That's not good. So, blessings to all.
Keep on inspiring.
Thank you very much.
Give me a second when we're in Israel, eh?
Absolutely. And you keep inspiring and keep you doing your thing. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for coming, and it's been a real pleasure. See you very soon.
Yes. Bye-bye.
So thank you so much for joining us today. This is YDIY Music, and as you know, we offer scholarship for independent musicians. So if you want to register, now is the time to apply until the end of July. You can go to ydiymusic.com/scholarship and submit the application form. All donations for this podcast will be used to help young musicians get a proper education. So please visit ydiymusic.com/donate to make your contribution. And you could also send a direct PayPal transfer to paypal.me@noamvazana. Join me next week, Thursday, July 16, and I'll be interviewing Diana Ezerins, the Director of Public Programming at the Kennedy Center, DC, US. In the meantime, good luck, keep calm, and DIY.